The crystal chandeliers of the grand ballroom glittered, casting a deceptive warmth over the scene. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the air, a celebratory symphony that grated against the raw wound in my chest. My sister, Clara, radiant in her elaborate white gown, held court at the head table, her eyes, usually sharp with judgment, now softened by a triumphant glow. Moments ago, her voice, amplified by the microphone, had sliced through the jovial atmosphere, twisting a seemingly innocent toast into a public spectacle of my humiliation. She had called me a struggling single mom, her words laced with pity that felt sharper than any insult, while subtly highlighting her own success in securing a wealthy future. My cheeks still burned with shame, but as I watched her, I caught the groom's eye across the room. Daniel. He had been quiet, almost withdrawn, through the entire ceremony. Now his gaze met mine, holding a depth I couldn't quite decipher, a flicker of something that was not pity, but perhaps a shared secret. He knew. He knew the truth behind my struggles. And as Clara raised her glass in another self-congratulatory gesture, Daniel slowly, deliberately, began to rise from his seat, his eyes still fixed on me. The music faded, a hush began to fall, and I felt a tremor of anticipation, cold and sharp, replace the shame. Clara thought she had won. She had no idea the tables were about to turn, irrevocably, catastrophically. My name is Patricia Jenkins. For years, I navigated the challenging path of being a single mother, facing the world with quiet resilience and unwavering dedication to my son, Alex. My life was defined by hard work, sacrifice, and the silent burden of a secret I carried for a promise I had made. My younger sister, Clara, always the more flamboyant and ambitious one, viewed my circumstances with a mix of condescension and thinly veiled pity. She saw my struggles, but she understood nothing of their true origin. She believed her lavish wedding, her union with the seemingly unassuming Daniel, was her ultimate triumph, a testament to her superior choices. And on that day, she seized the opportunity to publicly underscore her perceived superiority, mocking my life choices and my status as a struggling single mom. What she failed to grasp was that her groom, Daniel, held the key to an astonishing truth, a truth intricately woven into my life, a truth that would, in a single, devastating moment, expose her superficiality and rewrite the narrative of both our lives. My life, before the grand ballroom chandeliers bore witness to my public shaming, was a tapestry woven with threads of quiet responsibility and unforeseen sacrifice. I was born 5 years before Clara, the elder sister, always the more grounded and introspective of the two. While Clara chased dreams of glamour and social ascension, I found contentment in stability and genuine connection. We had a comfortable upbringing, thanks to our Uncle Arthur, a brilliant but eccentric inventor who had amassed a modest fortune through his early tech ventures. He had no children of his own, and he doted on us, especially on me, seeing a kindred spirit in my methodical nature and my quiet sense of duty. Uncle Arthur was a man of deep principles, but also of profound distrust. He believed in merit and honesty above all else. When I was in my late 20s, a few years before Alex was born, Uncle Arthur made a confession to me, a secret that would shape the next decade of my life. He had a son, a child born out of a brief, youthful affair, whom he had never acknowledged publicly due to complex circumstances and a promise made to the child's mother. That son was Daniel. Uncle Arthur had, for years, secretly funded Daniel's upbringing and education, ensuring he lacked nothing, but without ever revealing his true identity as Daniel's father. Daniel grew up knowing he had a mysterious benefactor, but was unaware of his direct lineage. Uncle Arthur, battling a terminal illness, revealed to me his grand plan. He had established a massive, intricate trust fund, not for Clara or me directly, but solely for Daniel, his biological son. The terms were specific and unusual. Daniel would only gain full access to the trust upon turning 30, and only if he demonstrated financial prudence and a commitment to using wealth responsibly. Critically, until Daniel turned 30, the trust required an independent, incorruptible administrator who would manage the funds discreetly, ensuring Daniel's anonymity and protecting the vast assets from any greedy relatives or opportunists who might discover their existence. That administrator, to Uncle Arthur's mind, was me. "Pat," he had said, his voice frail but firm, "you are the only one I trust implicitly. You have integrity. You understand figures, but you also understand people. This isn't just about managing money, it's about protecting Daniel until he's ready. And it's about making sure my legacy, what I truly built, goes to its rightful heir, untouched by those who only seek to exploit it." I accepted the immense responsibility. Uncle Arthur passed away shortly after. Overnight, I became the silent, clandestine guardian of a multi-million-dollar fortune, managing complex portfolios, overseeing investments, and ensuring Daniel's needs were met without ever revealing the true source or scale of his future inheritance. I chose to keep this a complete secret from everyone, including Clara. I knew Clara's materialistic tendencies. She would have found a way to exploit or demand a share, and that would have betrayed Uncle Arthur's trust. So, I lived a double life. By day, I worked a demanding, respectable, but not lavish, job in finance. By night, I managed Daniel's burgeoning empire, poring over reports, making critical decisions, all while maintaining an outward appearance of comfortable, but certainly not extravagant, living. When Alex was born a few years later, life became even more challenging. Being a single mother added layers of financial strain and exhaustion. I could have dipped into Daniel's trust to ease my own burdens, to buy myself a bigger house, or to alleviate the daily grind. But I didn't. Uncle Arthur's trust explicitly forbade using the funds for personal gain, and my integrity, reinforced by my promise to him, wouldn't allow it. I tightened my belt, worked harder, and made every penny count. This meant I often appeared to be struggling to Clara, who, with her focus on appearances, couldn't fathom why I wouldn't live a more lavish life, given my intelligence and presumed financial acumen. Clara, meanwhile, pursued a career in luxury event planning, always gravitating towards wealth and status. She dated exclusively affluent men, always on the lookout for her ticket to the high life. She married once before, a short-lived union with a man who turned out to be less wealthy than he pretended. She never understood my choices, my quiet life, my dedication to Alex. She saw my lack of ostentatious wealth as a personal failing, a sign that I hadn't made it. She often offered unsolicited advice, disguised as pity, about how I should prioritize my future and find a good man with prospects, subtly implying I was holding myself back. I simply smiled, knowing the truth she couldn't comprehend. Daniel, unbeknownst to him, was growing into a kind, unassuming young man, focused on his studies in engineering. I had established a system to communicate with his legal guardians about his needs, always maintaining a layer of professional distance, never revealing my true identity or my relationship to his benefactor. He was now almost 30, just months away from the date his life would irrevocably change. Then, Daniel met Clara. I was shocked when she told me she was dating a quiet engineer named Daniel. She often brought him to family gatherings, oblivious to the immense secret hanging in the air. I observed him closely. He was genuine, kind, and possessed an underlying intelligence that went beyond his unassuming exterior. He seemed truly devoted to Clara, even though she often overlooked his quiet strength in favor of his perceived potential to provide her with the stable, comfortable life she craved, unaware of his immense, hidden wealth. I saw in him the responsible, principled man Uncle Arthur had hoped he would become. My secret. The weight of Daniel's future grew heavier with each passing day. The wedding date was set for just weeks after Daniel's 30th birthday. The confluence of events was almost unbearable. I knew a reckoning was coming, but I could never have predicted its precise, devastating form. The wedding itself was a spectacle of Clara's aspirations, a lavish affair at the city's most exclusive hotel, draped in white roses and glittering with crystal. Every detail screamed opulence, a stark contrast to the quiet dignity I tried to maintain in my own life. I arrived with Alex, my handsome teenage son, who, despite his usual composure, looked a little overwhelmed by the grandeur. I wore a simple, elegant navy dress, chosen for its comfort and practicality, knowing Clara would scrutinize every stitch. The ceremony was predictably formal, the vows sincere on Daniel's part and outwardly so on Clara's. The reception was a whirlwind of polite chatter, expensive champagne, and strained smiles. I mostly kept to myself, exchanging pleasantries with distant relatives and enjoying Alex's company. Daniel, the groom, seemed quieter than usual, his eyes often scanning the room, as if searching for something or someone. He caught my eye a few times across the crowded ballroom, and I offered a small, reassuring smile, trying to convey my genuine happiness for him, even if the circumstances were difficult. The toasts began after dinner. My father delivered a heartfelt, if slightly rambling, speech. Clara's maid of honor tearfully recounted their childhood adventures. Then it was Clara's turn. She insisted on making a toast, despite a slight grimace from Daniel, who preferred to remain out of the spotlight. She took the microphone, her voice echoing through the grand hall, amplified and clear. "To my wonderful husband, Daniel," she began, her voice dripping with saccharine sweetness. "And to all our beloved family and friends who have joined us on this most special day." Her eyes swept over the room, pausing deliberately, for just a beat too long on me. "And to my dear sister, Patricia," she continued, her tone shifting, becoming tinged with a feigned sympathy that made my skin crawl. "Pat, you know, she's always been the quiet one, the hardworking one. A true inspiration, really, juggling everything as a single mom." She paused, letting the words hang in the air, allowing the implied struggle and my perceived failure to sink in. A few sympathetic glances came my way, but mostly, people shifted uncomfortably. She then leaned into the microphone, lowering her voice conspiratorially, but ensuring every word was heard. "It's not easy, is it, Pat? All those late nights, all those sacrifices. But look at me now. I finally found my Prince Charming." She gestured grandly to Daniel, who sat beside her, his face unreadable. "Someone who can truly take care of me, who understands what it means to build a future." The implication was clear. I hadn't found such a man, I hadn't built such a future. My single motherhood was a symbol of my inadequacy, my financial struggles a mark of my lesser worth. My cheeks burned. Alex, sensing my distress, subtly squeezed my hand. I could feel the eyes of hundreds of guests on me, some pitying, some curious, some simply observing the public spectacle. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. Clara, basking in the awkward silence she had created, then raised her glass, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "To Daniel, my amazing husband, and to new beginnings for all of us." The applause was scattered, hesitant. Just as the applause began to die down, just as Clara, still smiling, began to lower her glass, a chair scraped against the polished floor. "Daniel." He was standing up, slowly, deliberately. He took the microphone from Clara's hand, his touch gentle but firm. Clara looked surprised, then slightly annoyed. "Daniel, darling, I just finished my toast." He ignored her, his eyes scanning the room. Then his gaze, unwavering, found mine across the ballroom. He held it for a long, silent moment. His eyes held no pity, no judgment. Only a profound understanding and something else, a quiet, steely resolve that sent a shiver down my spine. The air crackled with unspoken tension. The entire room fell silent, sensing the shift. He was about to speak. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that the game was truly about to begin. Daniel's voice, when he finally spoke, was calm, resonant, and carried an authority that belied his usual quiet demeanor. "Thank you, Clara," he began, his gaze still fixed on me across the room, ignoring her surprised expression. That was a very illuminating toast. A ripple of confusion went through the guests. He then turned his attention to the crowd. "Before we proceed with the dancing, I have a few words I'd like to share. Words that are long overdue." He walked slowly towards the edge of the stage, away from Clara, who watched him with a mixture of bewilderment and growing annoyance. Many of you know me as an engineer, a quiet man who prefers data to grand speeches. But tonight, there is a truth that needs to be acknowledged. He paused, his eyes sweeping over the faces of the guests, then resting on Clara, a faint, almost imperceptible hardening in his gaze. "Clara just spoke of new beginnings," Daniel continued, his voice gaining strength. "And she spoke of finding someone who can truly take care of her. And she made mention of my sister-in-law, Patricia, as a struggling single mom." "Patricia," he said, his voice now softened, turning to me again, "would you please come up here?" My heart hammered against my ribs. The room gasped. Clara's eyes, which had been fixed on Daniel in confusion, now darted to me, a flicker of suspicion sparking in them. I felt 100 pairs of eyes on me, bewildered and curious. Alex squeezed my hand, offering silent support. Every instinct screamed at me to hide, but Daniel's gaze was a silent command. Slowly, I rose and began to walk towards the stage, my legs feeling like lead. Clara's voice, sharp and possessive, cut through the quiet. "Daniel, what are you doing? This is our wedding. This is hardly the time for whatever this is." He ignored her, his eyes guiding me forward. As I reached the stage, he took my hand gently, his touch warm and reassuring. He looked at the assembled guests, then at Clara, who stood frozen, her smile replaced by a rigid mask of fury. "Clara, my dear," Daniel said, his voice now colder, sharper, cutting through the silence like ice. "You are absolutely right. This is our wedding. And this is precisely the time to acknowledge the truth about who I am and who Patricia truly is. Because without Patricia, none of this, none of us, would be here." The color drained from Clara's face. The guests leaned forward, captivated by the unfolding drama. Daniel held my hand, his grip firm and supportive. He turned to the microphone, his voice resonating with a quiet authority that commanded attention. "My life, up until very recently, has been shaped by a secret. A secret kept not out of malice, but out of immense care and integrity. As many of you know, I was orphaned at a young age and raised by wonderful guardians. What I did not know, until just a few months ago, was that my true father, a brilliant but private man named Arthur Hayes, left me an inheritance. Not just a modest sum, but a considerable fortune, built over decades, with the explicit instruction that it be managed by one person, and one person only, until I reached the age of 30. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. A murmur spread through the room. Clara's eyes were wide, her mouth slightly agape. She kept glancing between Daniel and me, a desperate, confused look on her face. "That person," Daniel continued, his eyes meeting mine, then sweeping over the audience, the one who quietly and selflessly managed my multi-million-dollar trust, ensuring its growth and protecting it from all potential threats, was none other than Patricia, my sister-in-law. A collective gasp swept through the ballroom. Forks clattered, champagne glasses stopped midair. The whispers erupted like a sudden storm. "Patricia? The single mom?" I heard snippets of disbelief. Clara looked like she had been struck by lightning. Her face was ashen, her meticulously applied makeup suddenly stark against her pale skin. Her eyes darted wildly, trying to make sense of the incomprehensible. For 13 years, Daniel's voice cut through the noise. Patricia lived a life of quiet sacrifice. She worked her regular job. She raised her son, Alex, with remarkable dedication, and she faced challenges, financial and otherwise, with unwavering dignity, all while managing my family's fortune, ensuring it remained untouched, protected, and grew, strictly adhering to my father's wishes. She never took a penny for herself beyond her legitimate expenses as the trust administrator. She never used my funds to ease her own struggles. She chose integrity every single day over personal gain. He looked at Clara directly, his voice unwavering. So, Clara, when you stood here moments ago and mocked Patricia as a struggling single mom, when you spoke of finding someone who can truly take care of you and building a future, you are fundamentally misunderstanding the true strength, integrity, and immense wealth, both moral and financial, that stood right before you. Patricia didn't need to find someone to take care of her. She was already taking care of a multi-million-dollar estate and, more importantly, taking care of a promise to a dying man while living a life of quiet sacrifice. Clara staggered back, her hand flying to her mouth, her eyes fixed on Daniel with utter horror and betrayal. Her carefully constructed world, her entire marriage based on securing a wealthy future, was crumbling around her. She had mocked the very person who held the key to the groom's hidden wealth she was only now realizing existed. The silence in the ballroom was absolute, punctuated only by Clara's ragged breathing. Daniel, sensing her utter defeat, pressed on, his voice filled with a chilling clarity. Clara, you've always gravitated towards wealth, haven't you? You made sure to know every detail about my finances, my investments, my potential. But you never truly knew me. Or more importantly, you never knew the true extent of my inheritance, or the silent guardian who protected it. He then pulled a folded document from his inner jacket pocket. As I turned 30 last month, the trust was fully transferred to my name. And in the process, I discovered something else. Something about the measures Patricia took to protect my assets from opportunistic individuals. His gaze hardened as he looked at Clara. There were multiple attempts, Clara, to gain access to my benefactor's funds, even before my identity was fully revealed. Attempts made through dubious legal inquiries, through attempts to verify my family history, even through attempts to gain control of certain smaller assets that were part of the trust. Attempts that Patricia, in her quiet diligence, thwarted at every turn. He unfolded the document. It's all here, Clara. Documented. And the trust's legal team is already reviewing all actions taken against its assets, including those that happen to coincide with certain financial difficulties you experienced in the past. It appears your interest in my finances wasn't just about building a future with me, was it? It was about gaining access to a fortune you thought you could manipulate. Clara let out a choked cry, her face a mask of utter horror. That's a lie. You're making this up, she shrieked, her voice cracking, completely losing her composure. The perfect bride, the triumphant woman, was dissolving before everyone's eyes. Daniel's voice remained calm, almost dispassionate. It's all here, Clara. Documented. And the trust's legal team is already reviewing all actions taken against its assets, including those that happen to coincide with certain financial difficulties you experienced in the past. It appears your interest in my finances wasn't just about building a future with me, was it? It was about gaining access to a fortune you thought you could manipulate. He then turned to the assembled guests, his gaze commanding their silence. This wedding was meant to be a celebration of love and new beginnings. But true love, true beginnings are built on honesty and integrity. Not on veiled insults, not on exploitation, and certainly not on a foundation of deceit. Patricia here has embodied integrity for 13 years. Clara has shown us today, and through her past actions, what she truly values. Clara, unable to bear the weight of his words, the knowing stares of the guests, and the complete destruction of her meticulously crafted facade, let out a strangled sob. Her perfectly made-up face contorted in despair. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a raw, impotent rage and despair, as if I had personally orchestrated her downfall. but I had done nothing but fulfill a promise. She had orchestrated her own. The room buzzed with 1,000 whispers, a chaotic symphony of shock, disbelief, and dawning comprehension. Clara, her wedding dress now seeming like a cruel mockery, stood trembling on the stage, her face a blotchy mess of tears and smeared makeup. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out, only ragged, gasping sobs. Her carefully constructed image, her entire life built on appearances and manipulation, had shattered into a million pieces before everyone she knew. Daniel didn't even glance at her. He turned to me, his grip on my arm tightening, his voice dropping to a low, intimate tone meant only for me. "Patricia, you are the most honorable person I have ever known." My father chose well. He then lifted my hand, still clasping it, and turned back to the room, his voice clear and strong once more. My father's trust stipulated that should I, Daniel Hayes, ever require assistance in managing my affairs, or need a partner in any future ventures, I was to seek out the counsel of the person who administered his trust with such unwavering dedication. "Patricia." He paused, a faint, proud smile touching his lips. "As of today, Patricia is no longer just my sister-in-law. She is my most trusted advisor, a partner in every sense of the word, and the only person I want by my side as I navigate this new chapter of my life." He raised my hand slightly, a gesture of profound respect and allegiance. The entire room erupted, not in chaos, but in a sudden, resounding wave of applause. It was hesitant at first, then grew in strength and sincerity, a spontaneous standing ovation for me, the struggling single mom who had just been publicly vindicated. My eyes welled up with tears, not of shame, but of overwhelming relief and a profound sense of justice. Clara, still sprawled on the stage floor, looked up, her eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and utter, venomous hatred. She tried to scramble up, her face twisted in a silent scream, but she remained a broken figure in the spotlight of her own ruined wedding. Daniel, completely ignoring her, gently led me off the stage. As we walked through the applauding guests, I saw Alex, my son, standing tall, his face alight with pride. He rushed to me, embracing me tightly. The feeling of vindication was intoxicating, overwhelming. Clara thought she had cornered me, isolated me, made me small. She had only opened the door for a truth far greater than her petty cruelty, a truth that had turned her perfect wedding into the stage for her own spectacular downfall. The aftermath of Clara's wedding was swift and devastating for her. News of the public spectacle, complete with Daniel's damning revelations and Clara's dramatic collapse, spread like wildfire through social circles and local media. The perfect wedding became a viral sensation for all the wrong reasons. Daniel, having meticulously prepared for this day, moved swiftly. The annulment process began immediately, revealing more details about Clara's financial inquiries into his trust. Her reputation was irrevocably shattered. The event planning business she had so carefully cultivated evaporated overnight, as clients fled, horrified by her public display of greed and cruelty. She lost everything she had coveted, the wealthy husband, the social standing, and eventually, even the respect of what few genuine friends she had. She faded into obscurity, a bitter and disgraced figure. As for Daniel and me, our lives were transformed. Daniel, now with full control of his vast inheritance, used his resources responsibly, establishing philanthropic ventures and investing in sustainable technologies, just as his father Arthur had intended. He insisted I remain his closest advisor, entrusting me with significant responsibilities within his new foundation and business endeavors. My life, once defined by quiet sacrifice, became one of purpose and profound fulfillment. I worked closely with Daniel, building something meaningful, always guided by the integrity that Uncle Arthur had seen in me. My son, Alex, thrived, immensely proud of his mother and inspired by her resilience. He learned firsthand that true wealth lies not in material possessions, but in character and principle. My relationship with Daniel evolved into a deep, unwavering friendship built on mutual respect and shared values. We became a formidable team, a testament to the power of hidden integrity. The moral of this story is etched deeply in the ruins of Clara's ambition. Life often presents us with quiet heroes who carry immense burdens and secrets with dignity, choosing integrity over easy gain. Those who are quick to judge, to mock, or to exploit often fail to see the true strength and hidden power in others. They are so blinded by their own superficial desires that they inadvertently set the stage for their own downfall. Clara believed she had a tight grip on her destiny, mocking my struggles. But she failed to see the intricate threads connecting my quiet sacrifices to a fortune, to a man, and to a truth that was destined to unravel her entire world. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge is simply allowing the truth, long protected, to finally step into the light.